blankets or really supersized big towels as well, because then you can work out how we can fold up blankets to create a bit of a stepped kind of layer of them for one of the other postures as well. Okay. So the first thing that I'd like us to do is to just mobilise the spine a little bit before we come into the twist. The twist is the first thing that we're going to do in terms of a restorative posture. But I think it's quite nice to move the spine a little bit first, otherwise the twist might feel too strong. So come to cat and move your spine by tilting your pelvis. So pelvis really is, I guess, the main driver of all our movement, whether we're walking or kind of wiggling about and shuffling on our hands and knees. When you're in cat, it gives you that sense of being able to just come to your mat and ease and start to tilt the pelvis and let the back ripple and tuck the pelvis and let the back ripple the other way. So you're managing to ease your back by tilting the pelvis and adding the breath as well. Super. And then what's quite nice when you've done that a little bit is turn your imaginary little tail into a crayon and draw some circles on the wall behind you. And let that kind of wiggling movement go all the way down the spine to the shoulders. And just let the head move around wherever it wants to. And then circle back the other way. So the first way you tend to go will be your default, your kind of natural way of circling. And going the other way might well require quite a bit of concentration until you get into the rhythm. Fantastic. And then slowing that movement down. And come to a sitting position just for a moment so we can side bend the spine. As you come to your sitting position, just check. I'm not sure, Joyce, if you're on mute or not. I can't do anything from my end with that. So bring yourself to a comfy sitting position. Handy to have your arms out of the way, to be perfectly honest. And for me, bringing them across the chest is a little more comfy than bringing the fingers kind of onto the shoulders. I think this is all a bit awkward. So just resting them in front. You sit tall, lengthen up from the crown of the head, breathe in and breathe out and have a gentle side bend. Breathe in back to centre, breathe out, a gentle side bend the other way. So each out breath you side bend, each in breath you come back up to your tall sitting position. And noticing and seeing how things feel. Be aware of what's going on in your neck. And as you side bend, if you want to gently bring the ear towards the shoulder, do. But be very careful with the neck, particularly as you lift the head back up. Sometimes, I know this sounds a little bit bonkers, but if you imagine that once you're into your side bend with your ear towards your shoulder, that there is an invisible hand just underneath your face, and that invisible hand lifts you up. I know it's not there, but it really does make quite a difference in terms of how you come back to sitting upright. It's as if the neck kind of kicks into action and the muscles work to bring your head safely back. Super. So when you feel like you've eased into your spine, then bring your arms down, have a little wiggle around with your shoulders. And then we can have a go at our twist. So using your bolster, made out of whatever you want. I know I've got mine here to show you, but also just really for size comparison, if I use this one that's made of pillows and a blanket, you can see that how it works. So from the front view, let me just show you from the front view, like angle directly to the screen. So you're going to be sitting side on, and I'll show you the side on position in a second. But you bring a hand either side of the bolster and walk your hands a little bit down the length of the bolster. And we want to crown of the head lengthening up. Think about just easing the body around a little bit. So you get the sense that that midline is facing down the top of the bolster, so that when you think lift the tummy button up onto the top of the bolster, wander the hands forwards and lie on top of the bolster. I would definitely have your head facing the same way as your knees to begin with. And then just soften, okay? I'll just show you sideways so you can see the leg position. Somebody, I think it was Zoe at a workshop that I was at, because they're all in Kent. She said if you lean back like this, it's like a, somebody from Margate kind of postcard. I hadn't got a clue what she was on about, but anyway, then I realised what she was on about, so because she was asking us to do this with our arms as well. But it's that leg position, I suppose. It's that kind of sideways sitting. You could have your foot tucked if you want to, you don't have to. But it's a side on, and then you're going to turn, and you might want to just lift and push the front of the bolster down, get your tummy button on the top, wander yourself down the length. Definitely look the same way as your knees to start with. If you notice where my arms are, I've got my elbows sort of underneath my shoulder, so I can't lower any more than this because of the length of that bone. But at some point, if I wander my arms forwards, my arms don't then hold my body up in the air, and you'll turn into the twist a bit more. But take your time with that one. Okay? I'm not going to leave you here too long. These twisting ones are maybe 3, maybe 4 minutes. Not too much longer than that. What I'm going to do is just let you know when 2.5 minutes is up, and then you can decide to move about and come out of it. But I'll also let you know when to turn your head. If you want to let your body settle for a little bit, and then at some point maybe turn your head if you fancy it. So as your body softens and eases, if you want to wander your hands further forwards beyond your head, then do, so that it takes the weight out of your upper arms and your body settles a little bit lower down. There's an additional option of turning your head in the opposite direction to the way that your knees are going. When you turn your head the other way, you might really like it, and the neck might turn quite happily. If it doesn't turn happily and you end up kind of with your nose poked into the top of your bolster, it's not going to make breathing very easy. So perhaps you turn your head back to face the same way as your knees. So stay where you are just for a moment. That is about 2.5 minutes. So if you're feeling super, super comfy, no need to move just yet. If your body's thinking, okay, I'd actually quite like to move, and you've got your head facing away from your knees, turn your head to face back towards or in the same direction that your knees are facing. And have half a dozen in and out breaths there, and then ease yourself up. So if you're still in your twist, turning your head to face the same way as your knees, just for a moment, half a dozen in and out breaths, and then easing yourself up. Take your time, don't be in a rush to come back. If you're up and you're back and you're ready to go to the other side, then you're turning to face the other way and settling yourself into the twist, the other way round. So sitting the other way round, bolster side on to you, so just at the edge of your pelvis. And lift yourself up, rest your tummy button on the top of that bolster. And then lengthen your body down the top of the bolster, like you're resting the whole of your midline down the front of your body on the very top of the bolster. Once you get your body resting on the bolster, head facing the same way as your knees, maybe have your elbows under your shoulders to let the body soften. Then working towards lengthening the arms away, because then the weight of the the upper body isn't travelling down the upper arm bone. And you perhaps settle more deeply into your turn. Know that at any point you want to move your head, you can turn your head the other way. So you've been there for about 2.5 minutes now. So if this is something you're ready to move out of, turning your head to face the same way that your knees are facing, 6 in and out breaths, and then come up. If you want to stay there for a little bit longer, absolutely fine. So you've been there for about 4 minutes now, turning your head to face the same direction as your knees, being there for 6 in and out breaths, and then easing yourself back. Once you've eased yourself back, we're coming to sitting. We're going to focus the mind with a little bit of breathing practice. We'll turn the back and maybe sitting feels a little bit easier. So how you sit and where you sit, entirely up to you, to be honest. There's pros and cons to everything, as you know. So you can sit and lean against something. That's absolutely fine. Know that if you lean against something, we're still looking for a very, very upright spine. Know that also one of the things that can happen if you lean against something is that the body becomes very, very comfy, and the mind possibly has a tendency to drift towards sleep, particularly at this time of day as well. So it depends what you want. Depends what you want from the next 10 minutes. If you are quite happy to feel that lovely sort of woozy in and out of snoozy feeling, then go with it and lean against something. If you're thinking, actually, I'll spend 10 minutes being very focused and I'll stay away from a leaning position, and sitting upright means that you tend not to head towards that sort of sleepy state, then find somewhere comfy to sit. You could sit cross-legged, you could sit with your legs out in front of you, you could straddle something, and I know you've made your own bolster, so you could straddle that. You could add a pile of more cushions onto something to straddle it. So come to whatever that comfy sitting position is for you, anywhere at all. Feel like your spine grows from the crown of your head. It's a bit tempting to bring the chin up, but we want the chin slightly tucked, not really, really tucked, because you don't want to take out that natural curve in the back of your neck. So it's a sense of lifting up. One of the things that tends to happen when you're sitting cross-legged and you sit tall is the knees come up, because everything kind of in here at the top of your legs pulls. So if you want to sit tall without your knees coming up, a little trick is to sit forwards and wiggle, then grow your spine in that angled direction and everything settles in your legs, and then bring yourself up, but not quite to bolt upright. And you've got a very slight lean forwards, but the legs are not lifting, but you can really feel like you're sitting tall And you've got a little shadow of a small back bend here, your natural little curve in your lower back. Okay. So closing your eyes, have your hands anywhere in your lap that you want to. If you want a mudra, it's okay to do pranayama with jnana mudra. So that's your thumb tip and your fingertip touching to make a circle. And your other 3 fingers are straight and your palms face up. So if you wanted to, this is an okay mudra to use with pranayama. So closing your eyes and noticing your breath, taking your breath into your lungs, in that sense that you're taking each in-breath a little bit lower, a little bit softer, a little bit longer. And simply taking time to notice your breath. As you breathe in, be aware of some movement of the abdomen, then a little movement of the ribs, and then just as you're finishing your in-breath, notice a very slight movement around your collarbones. As you breathe out, picture that you're emptying your lungs from the bottom, then the middle, then the top. As you breathe in, filling your lungs from the bottom, so you breathe into your abdomen, then the middle, breathing into the ribs, then the top and the collarbones, breathing out, bottom, middle, top, breathing in, bottom, middle, top. And really come to that place where we can establish our comfy, easy, resting breath. At a count of 4, breathing in for a count of 4, breathing out for a count of 4. And we're going to extend our in and out breath and breathe in for 6, breathe out for 6. As you settle into that rhythm, breathing in for 6, breathing out for 6, noticing At the end of each breath, there's that moment in time, that pause, that gap, where no breath is happening, and then the breath happens again. And each time you come into that little space at the end of the breath, come into that little space as if you're just hovering there for a while, feeling stillness and ease as you just hover in that space, and then the breath happens. And perhaps it feels okay to hover in that space for a count of 3. So breathing in for 6, being in that space at the end of the in-breath with lungs full for a count of 3. Breathing out for a count of 6. Being in that space at the end of the out-breath, lungs empty for a count of 3. Know that if that ratio doesn't quite suit you today, it's absolutely fine to do 4-2, 4-2. Keeping that smooth rhythm going until you hear the sound of my voice again. at the end of your next held out breath, and releasing the focus on that space between each breath, breathing in for 6, breathing out for 6. If your count is at 4, breathing in for 4, breathing out for 4. After your next out breath, releasing your count. Maybe you gently wiggle your fingers, ease into your shoulders, gently opening your eyes. So, just in case you kind of want to know, that was 10 minutes of talking into and talking out of. So that entire breathing practice was 10 minutes. Don't know whether it feels like 10 minutes or not, and whether that kind of goes quite quickly. And you could sort of talk yourself into it and maybe put a little timer on, and then know that when the timer goes, if you've taken maybe a minute's worth of sort of breathing in and out to get to your 6, to then add your the count for the pause, and you've put your timer on for say 10 minutes, you know that you've probably done 8 to 9 minutes of practice. So just in case it's of any interest at all, and it's in my mind because I've been doing quite a bit of work on it this afternoon. So in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, it's Sutra number 1.39. There are many of them. But so up until that point, so in Sutras book 1, numbers 1 through to number 38, we get a lot of description about how to do yoga, how to settle the mind stuff, and how we stop chitta-vritti kind of happening and so on. And then in Sutra number 1.39, after this very strict instruction about how to do it in a very, very serious way, Patanjali also says in that sutra, actually, if you focus your mind on anything that you wish to, so he kind of lets us off the serious hook in lots of ways, which is quite nice. So actually, when you're doing cat and you're really, really focusing just on that lovely movement of the spine or the movement of the pelvis or the breath and the movement, you're focusing your attention on one thing. So you're doing what he's instructing, which is to quieten the mind stuff. So it doesn't matter what that focus is. So the pranayama that you've just been doing, where you're counting, breathing in for 6, holding for 3, breathing out for 6, holding for 3. It's about training the mind to let go of that other stuff that occupies us and keeps our mind really, really busy. So not only do you get the wonderful practice for your breathing muscles when you're doing pranayama, you get the lovely focus for the mind as well. We're going to have a little short inversion. So I just want to move the laptop briefly because I do want you to see side on with where I'm going to put the bolster. So we curl up side on to the wall and roll, and then the legs go up the wall. Okay. So when you get here, that's just how to get there kind of easily. To put something underneath you, if you want a bolster, do a bolster. If you don't want anything, don't. If you want just a little layer, fold up a blanket. But once you get the bolster underneath you, if you push it to the wall, there's a bit of a tendency for, if you can see that point and this point, there's a downward kind of curve and flattening. If I move this a little bit more, notice that completely different shape in my spine. This is a great top for that demonstration. How marvellous. So you can see the height here and that curve that comes all the way down to my shoulder. So that's what we're after. We're after that curve. How high up you make that curve, that's the bit that's entirely up to you. But you're going to get a very different sense of how your back settles with that curve rather than this one, where I know that's a very exaggerated version, but your curve is coming down rather than that one. Okay, so this bolster can be anything at all. Okay, I'll very quickly show you what I've done with that blanket. So if you have something a lot smaller, like a little blanket, sorry I've got my back to you, but that's where my space is, you put your legs up and just have a little bit, but again moving it so that it's kind of higher up, so you've still got that curve, that shape, rather than that curve shape where your lower back's going down into the floor. You're supporting. It's like your little tail is just dangling off the wall side. Does that make sense? And the arms, anywhere where you want them. Really doesn't matter. Here, anywhere. And just find comfort anywhere at all with your legs up the wall. So I'm not going to yabber, I'm going to let you enjoy your inversion for a little while, and then you'll hear my voice again. Allow your focus to return to your physical body. Notice what you have underneath your pelvis. Take your time to very gently ease and take out whatever it is that's supporting underneath your pelvis, so then you can come back flat to the floor and have at least half a dozen in and out breaths with your back flat. Then easing yourself when you're ready to back up just enough so you can see what happens next. So I've rigged up a whole bunch of goodies. There's a rolled up blanket for the back of the ankle. There's a bolster for the back of the knees, and then a kind of stepped load of blankets there. Now you don't have to have loads of them. I've got four different blankets kind of stepped all the way up, and there's a bit of a roll right at the top to go in the back of the neck. Doesn't have to be that. If you're thinking, oh, I don't have that number of stuff around me, don't worry about that at all. You can just have a little bit of a lift for your upper back. I'll just show you where this goes in case this is something you want to replicate. So literally like this, tilt the pelvis a little bit, lie down. This tucks into your neck. Lovely to have your hand just resting on the edge of the cushion and being here. Okay, so everything gets supported, everything lets go. If this arrangement under your back is not something that you've got all of these different blankets for, you might have one, so you might have a little bit of a lift. So you've got a small step, sorry, legs in the way, small step here, but perhaps what you do is a little bit of a curl for the neck, part way up. So back of the head sits one side, a little bit of a curl. You see how I've just brought it forwards to make a bit there, and then your back. So you've got a very slight lift in the back. Often then takes some of that sort of squishy feeling out of the throat when you're completely flat. If you're a little bit elevated, that your forehead ever so slightly higher than your chin, and your head slightly higher than your heart a little bit higher than your pelvis. So you get that little bit of stepping so that it looks like that. And you've got this little roll just tucked into the back of your neck. And again, perhaps the cushion where you put your hand on if you want to. So either of those, absolutely fine. Know that, anything that I'm offering is merely a suggestion of how you want to stack things. I'll put those other pillows back in case you wanted to see and be reminded what that looks like. So there's a little thing for the neck there. And that kind of step of, it's a sort of soft edge of the fold where there's lots of different layers. Super. A little bit of a lift of the upper back. Have anything else that you want, hands resting on a cushion. Don't forget to have a blanket over you if you want to. It's not quite as warm today. Socks on, eye pillows, anything that you fancy. Settling and easing. And just checking that you've got everything in the right place for comfort, that your head feels comfy, and your neck, your shoulders. How's your lower back? If you've got anything going on in your lower back, you might just tilt your pelvis slightly, like you're lifting a little tail between your thighs, and it makes the lower back ease to the floor a touch more. Make sure that if you've got something under your knees, that bolster is under the back of your knees rather than too much under your calf muscles or your thighs. And if you've got a little bit of support underneath your ankles, that it's there hovering your feet just from the floor, so your heels don't touch the floor. Awareness to the breath. And establishing your comfy, easy, resting breath. We're not going to do anything with the breath. And the concentration technique that I'm going to offer is an offer. Again, it's if you like it and you want to use it, that's great. If it's not the one that you like, you could do a different one that you like. Or simply be in your relaxation position without the concentration technique. So being aware of your breath. And the concentration technique is the one where you're going to count backwards with your out breath from 20. So you have an out breath and count 20. Breathe in, have an out breath, count 19. Breathe in, and so on. And taking your time to notice that we are avoiding getting too attached to an outcome of getting to zero. Try not to get too attached to that sense that you kind of tick yourself off for not doing it as well, that your mind wanders. So the mind wanders, it's a bit of a thing to control, is the mind. This is a technique that helps. So we don't worry whether the mind wanders off. We simply notice when it does, we bring it back to counting the out breath backwards from 20. And when you get to 0, you come back to 20 and you do it again. Focusing your mind, if you want to, on that counting backwards from 20 until you hear the sound of my voice again. So after your next out breath, releasing your count. In your mind's eye, just picturing yourself with the different supports that you have underneath you. Picturing where you are in your room, what might be close by. So as you ease and move and stretch and wiggle, you just take care with how you ease yourself back. So it might be that it feels quite nice to come to cat and move a little bit, particularly when you've been lying on your back for a while. So as you ease and move yourself in cat, if you are, the other thing just to be aware of is that sort of stepped shape that's underneath your back is one that you could create in bed with two pillows sort of not quite entirely on top of one another. So you're propped up just a little bit. So you kind of slide down and off them as you fall asleep, but sometimes it's quite nice to be a little bit propped up as you nod off if your breathing doesn't feel as easy, or you're struggling to be on one side and so on. That can be quite nice, just that little sense of your forehead, just thinking about that shape where your forehead is just a little bit higher than your chin, your head just a little bit higher than your heart just a little bit higher than your pelvis, and it soothes the body a little bit more than being completely flat, which of course is a very traditional Shavasana shape. But I think whoever invented it didn't really want us to feel that comfy, perhaps. So blankets and cushions and pillows are good. Anyway, lovely to see you all. Thank you for joining in again.